I simply have to comment on one of the recent videos uploaded by Eric Hovind that a lot of us have been commenting on. And this is the one where he portrays that a security camera has caught both sides of a telephone conversation that he had with a salesperson that called, in which he proceeds to try to preach to her. Now, one of my many hobbies is closed circuit television, surveillance, IP cameras, and that sort of thing. I have actually almost 30 closed circuit TV cameras operating around my property. I have 3 computers running software called Blue Iris, which records on motion and does all kinds of interesting things. You can program it to do alerts that it can send out text messages with a picture from the camera after it records motion. I have infrared, passive infrared sensors in strategic locations so that when someone passes by, it will record that motion. I have it geofenced on my phone so that when I leave the property, it changes these computers to a different mode. They're more sensitive to motion, and they'll send out a picture, for instance, email me a picture, text me a picture when someone comes up. It's actually quite good for my business because I can leave, and if the Purelator guy comes while I'm gone, I'm notified the moment that he's here, and I know that it's him. And when we're away on vacation, of course, it's even in more of a hypersensitive mode, and I'm alerted if someone's here and there's any funny business going on. And so I know a little bit about this stuff, and you kind of got to have a lot of foresight and wire things very specifically in order to record both sides of a phone conversation from a security camera. Somehow I doubt that Eric Hovind is quite tech savvy enough to pull that off. What's ironic, of course, about this is in a video wherein he's talking about sin. And of course, misleading people, lying would be considered to be, I think, sinful. And so he's portraying this to everyone in a dishonest way. But what's more interesting than that is this instance that he's talking to this woman. He takes advantage of this woman who's called for a specific purpose, who's employed at the moment by someone, and he sort of takes advantage of her and starts asking her the questions. These are the tired old questions that we've seen from Ray Comfort, and sadly they work for some. I actually have a person who I would consider a friend who is a believer and is a Ray Comfort fan, and I've made several banana jokes to him, and he just doesn't seem to get it. And so I don't want to test our friendship too much. However, he's opening himself up a little bit because recently I did some work for him, and he left me some cash in my Dropbox for payment. And he could find nothing else to house the cash in but a copy of the Atheist test. It's a little tract that they like to give out to people. And that Atheist test, which I've seen before, because it's usually on the console of his car, goes through these typical Ray Comfort questions. Have you ever told a lie? What does that make you? Well, and it goes into other things as well. And this is the same questions that Eric Hovind was asking this woman in this sort of entrapment dialogue, right? It's interesting to me that that's what they always have to resort to, is this sort of leading questions and an entrapment dialogue, sort of the Cy ten Bruggencate website style, right? Where you have to entrap people by asking specific questions and leading them to a conclusion. And of course, the questions are ridiculous, right? Have you ever told a lie? Well, yes, I have. Well, then what are you? Well, of course, the answer they're looking for is a liar. Well, if I perform an emergency tracheotomy on somebody who's been involved in an accident or something, does that make me a surgeon now? Can I disregard the thing that I do all the other time as a profession, right? As an automotive mechanic? Am I no longer now an automotive mechanic, and am I now a surgeon? To say that someone, it's ridiculous to even have to point this out. To say that someone who is 98, 99% truthful and is a good person otherwise, maybe does good deeds, maybe gives to charity, maybe volunteers, maybe has looked after the sick, the elderly, etc., tells a lie, that is what now defines that person, right? And of course, it doesn't get any better from there. Everything is meant to take one negative aspect and completely characterize the person by that aspect, and disregarding everything else that person may have done that is in opposition to that. So I'm going to keep an eye on things that I do as I go about my day so that I can characterize myself as something other than the profession that I actually hold as an automotive mechanic. Of course, it's also kind of interesting to me, too, the logic behind the salvation narrative that he talks about in there as well, because he says that, God doesn't send people to hell because he hates them or anything like that. He sends people to hell because he cannot condone sin in heaven. Heaven is a perfect place, and there could just be no sin in heaven. And the answer to that is not the eradication of the sin, erasure of sin, or changing the characteristics of people so that they don't sin. The answer to it is a forgiveness of sin. And clearly people don't stop sinning, as evidenced by Eric Hovind's very dishonest portrayal of the incident that he's shown us. The sin isn't ending, it's just being forgiven. So how does that square with sin not being allowed in hell, sinful people not being able to go to heaven? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but go figure. Anyway, I think it's really just funny, and I don't know what to say about my good friend. Maybe we can take the atheist test together someday. Thanks for watching.